Diabetes Fiji Marawa.
Yeah,
Hello.
hello, Bula
Bula.
Vinaka, Bula.
Bula.
Thank you so much, Maria and the team for the lovely presentations. Actually, I just want to raise a few questions. I've
Yeah.
raised a few questions on the chat groups, and just a few questions. Before the questions, I want to acknowledge given us an opportunity, first time for us as an NGO, also as a civil society organization here in Fiji, mainly advocate on the people who living with diabetes, but also we have just the last past few weeks we able to participate on the indigenous movement, something with that ADB is organized about.
Okay.
My question is, in terms of, you elaborate more on about the capacity, I mean, about the role of ADB consultant management system, you know,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, and how we can, be involved or integrate our programs. My question is that, like for Fiji, we are in terms of health, they have other the government looking into more on the infrastructure and other other development compared to health. So
Okay.
we are more advocate on health, the healthy issues, or mainly on diabetes. So
Mm-hmm.
how we can access to the support, or in terms of the consulting aspects that you just mentioned, even though that government have other priorities areas apart from health, how we as a CSO can access to the support, or in terms of consulting services. The second question is,
Mm-hmm.
I know that ADB have organized, a lot of events with other CSO in the past, and
Mm-hmm.
how we can be invited, or how, if there's any plans to include the capacity building for CSOs and NGO, so we can have a better understanding, and understanding as well, in the roles and the responsibility for us to access in terms of the program that ADB usually provide. Pinaka. That's all from us.
Yeah, so thank you so much for those questions. I'm actually diabetic as well, so thank you for all the work that you do. That's really great to hear.
Pinaka.
So so I think on your second question, what you might want to do is go ahead. So our primary event that we can provide right now at the headquarters level is our annual meetings program. So what I would do is I would send an email to, can we put the ADB Civil Society email into the chat? And we can get you on the mailing list for our annual meeting. And anyone else too, just maybe send a note to that email, and we'll put you on the mailing list and provide you the information. Oh, there it is. So civilsociety@adb.org. And that way you'll be included in like the annual meetings kind of notification. We are looking at developing a newsletter to kind of get information out, and so we can also include you in that, but that's in the process of development at the moment. So that annual meetings is sort of the big event at headquarters. For things that are specific to Fiji, I think your best point of contact is going to be the resident mission within Fiji. And so I think our CSO anchor there is named Beatrice. So what you can do is you can go to that NGO and civil society center website that I showed you. Do you remember? So you type in ADB and civil society, you find our website, and then you go down and look, you select Fiji, and it'll come up with the name of the civil society anchor. Because that office might be organizing some specific things for civil society groups within Fiji. And then they would be able to tell you about those. And that person is also sort of a key point of contact as well for your first question, which was about, the health sector and where the government's priorities are. So our government's have their own priorities, right? And we work with them to identify what we're jointly going to do together. So for some governments, if their priority is infrastructure, but it's not health, there's not a whole lot that we can really do to influence that outside of the consultations within the country partnership strategy process. But I will say, even if governments have priorities of, again, infrastructure, that doesn't mean that they're not doing health projects. So what we oftentimes see is, strategic priorities, say in energy transport, but then at the same time, every country needs healthcare, right? So they're still doing these sorts of projects. And I think it's really important to talk to that person at the resident mission, and figure out whether the government is going to be doing any projects in the health sector. And even if the government is not doing it, we might be doing it through a technical assistance project. And so that person at the resident mission might be able to steer you in terms of the different projects that are out there and whether there are any opportunities for you to get those consulting opportunities. And that person will also be able to tell you whether, there are any opportunities for civil society groups to have dialogue with government and tell them, for example, that you think they should be focusing more on healthcare. So really that person at the resident mission is the key individual. And so I encourage everyone here to look at our website and look at the CSO anchors online. And if you have trouble finding them, you can always email us. Does that answer the question?
Yes, yes. Thank you very much for that.
Okay, thank you. Thank you again for all the work that you do. Do we have, I know I saw another hand up earlier. Any more hands? Okay, let's go to Francis.
Good morning. My name is Francis. I'm from the International Trade Union Confederation Asia Pacific. Thank you very much for inviting us, and also this comprehensive presentation to open more opportunity to CSOs and trade union to be part of the project. Yeah, I also see some questions about this selection process, and in particular regarding the project. The government is overseeing, and they have some concern about this process because, in particular, the trade union at the national levels, it depends on actually the industrial relationship between the government and then trade union, and then trade union likely is likely excluded from this any consultation at this moment. With a serious violation of the labor rights in many countries in Asia. So yeah, that's actually my concern. And second, I would like to share with you. Of course, I'm going to share this business opportunity with our affiliate in Asia. The National Center of the Trade Union in Asia countries in Asia Pacific. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Francis. Actually, I don't know if we have Heidi on. Heidi? Are you by chance on? Heidi used to be our labor specialist, and before she became head of the NGOC unit. So I think she knows ITUC very well, and was going to call on her to speak to you about this. Francis, I very much recognize sort of your points regarding the relationships with labor unions and trade associations with some of our governments across the country, across our different DMCs. And I think a lot of that has to do with not so much what our group does, but our safeguards policy. And have you been involved in those? I know ITUC has definitely been involved in those. But yeah, so that kind of like labor rights and all of that is going to be addressed through our new safeguards policy, which is in the process of being approved by our board. And that will deal with occupational health and safety as well as the rights of different workers. But at the government level, it becomes much more complicated. One of the things early in this presentation that I meant to talk about a little was that, you know, we are a neutral international institution, and therefore it's oftentimes very difficult for us to engage in sort of political dialogues that are happening in different countries, because our purpose is primarily that development aspect and angle of prosperity across Asia and Pacific. So we typically would not become involved in sort of the dialogues between trade unions and government. I feel like I haven't answered your question though. Did you have any follow-on?
Oh, thank you. Thank you, Marina. Yes, the ITUC AP and together with the ITUC Washington office, we've been working together with the ADB, your team, on safeguard policy and the new environmental social framework. Yes, we already had two consultations, and we expect to have another one with the final text, definitely. And ESS2 on labor and working condition, and ESS4 on occupational health and safety issue. Yes, we deeply involved in this process, and also we expect to be part of this process to develop the manuals and guidelines for your bank staff. And yes, but I would like to share. I mean, when the Heidi used to work in your position, and we actually had a cooperation to facilitate dialogue through the ADB resident mission in many countries, Bangladesh, Sri Lanka, India, and Nepal, etc., etc. So yes, I understand that the ADB is a primary counterpart as a government, and ADB is a political organization, so neutral in terms of politics, national politics, I mean. But I believe that under the new ESF, and the ADB has ADB could play a quite critical role to facilitate the dialogue, and then I believe the dialogue and involvement of the workers together with the employer, I think, is quite critical to make your project successful and programmatic in the first, I mean, in the beginning place of the project cycle. Thank you.
Yeah, no, thanks so much, Francis. I think we very much agree with you on the point of dialogue. So this is actually why we've started piloting these civil society partnership days, because those are specifically geared toward creating sort of neutral platforms of exchange between civil society groups and government, so that government can sort of directly, it gives civil society a platform to talk about the issues that they're concerned about, and you know, government is there. So we're doing our second one in September this year, and we'll see how that goes, and you know, try to sort of try to tweak the program from that, and have this you know, rolled out across different DMCs. We've also been looking at civil society kind of advisory groups for our resident missions, and including labor as sort of a key group within those advisory groups. That's something on the like longer term list of things to do. But that is also like a channel for regular dialogue between civil society, particularly like including labor, to have with our resident mission. So we definitely, it is well taken. And I promise that we are working on that.
Thank you, Marina.
Thank you, Francis. Let's go to Ji Young.
Hi, my name is Ji Young. I work at the Save the Children International, and thank you for this wonderful session. I also have some question about the selection process, but I guess a couple of other colleagues also shared a similar question. So I just wanted to add that, like, you know, it would be great if there's some kind of advocacy around CSO engagement in general when the government is deciding the partner beyond individual project, because I know that it's a bit difficult to get engaged and influence the decision by the government. In some cases, you know, we have to abide by the transparency and fair opportunities and so on and so forth. So I would just say that, like, you know, beyond the individual project, if, you know, we can actually do more about the advocacy for the inclusive partnership when it comes to sovereign loan, you know, that the government is looking for the partner, then not necessarily any individual NGO that we are talking about, but like more about like the government should more engage with the local partner to make sure that the program is implemented in a way that is inclusive. So I think that advocacy platform, if there's any event,
Okay.
maybe one of the occasion that you mentioned, I think I'll be very happy to invite other colleague and our office to be engaged. I think that's just
Okay.
a kind of suggestion, and also if you have
Great
any
suggestion.
kind of the idea, let me know. And my question is that the for the specific technical assistant call that you said it's a pilot, and I've seen the recent call about like gender and heat and AI and so on and so
Yeah.
forth that is open for CSO as well as the government and private sector. So I
Mm-hmm.
wonder if this is going to be increased, because now the current call is about the Bangladesh and Cambodia. And so is
Mm-hmm.
it more like a kind of like pilot as in isolation, or do you see more of the increase, like, do you foresee any more occasion where CSO can directly apply for such new areas, such as, gender and heat and AI, that's kind of relatively new area as far as I understand. So do you see that trend? That's my question. And then
Okay.
the second question is, several country offices of the INGO is a register as a local NGO, or sometimes they are registered as an INGO in the country. So in that case, what would be the best approach when we want to register as a firm? So should INGO be registered as a local or national? Is it really depending on the legal status, or should he, look into more about the reality,
Yeah.
like we NGO? Yeah. So that's my question. Thank you.
Okay, great. No, thanks so much for those are all really helpful points. I think, so on your first one, it's something that we are trying to do on multiple levels in terms of advocating with governments about the importance of civil society. We've started kind of integrating this into high level visits, these talking points, and just talking about that. And then we've also ramped up our communications within ADB to kind of sensitize our staff to this and have our staff start talking about it more with their counterparts. And also we're starting to see some queries. I just had a query from a government agency in one of our countries asking about how they could integrate civil society into their projects. So that was pretty cool. But if you have suggestions on how we can do this, I think we would really appreciate them, because we are always looking for ideas in terms of how we can do this better. So if you have any thoughts in terms of what might be sort of a helpful platform or what might be sort of a helpful product, and this goes for everybody in the room, please do send them to us, because fundamentally we are here for you. We want to make this easier for you to understand this institution. So any suggestions would be absolutely great. So then your I have your third question. What was the second question again? Just remind me quickly.
Yeah, so the second one is about the technical assistant. I see some
Okay,
graph
that's right.
for the CSO. Is it like increasing, or is it just like a one anecdotal? Yeah.
Yeah, so I think with the gender one that you're referring to, this is the gender and heat challenge that just went out. Okay, yeah.
Yeah.
So that is specific. So what oftentimes happen, I'm going to be very frank here. What oftentimes happens with technical assistance programs is that it's a pool of money dedicated to a specific topic, and then it disappears after 3 years, right? Because the program's done, and then it's time to kind of revitalize it. And at that time, the person who's been working on gender and heat may have left for somewhere else, and it's a new person who's come in, and they have a fundamentally different vision of what they're looking for. So I think that for that specifically, that's sort of related to that particular technical assistance. But gender is absolutely a priority for our institution. And gender is not going away. Gender and heat has been a subject that has gained a lot of attention, because it fundamentally intersects with our priority for climate as well as our priority for gender. So I think you're going to see more of that in the future. And I also think that you're going to see more of the sort of challenge modality going forward. So we actually just launched, for if there are any Mongolians on here, this call, we actually just launched one for Mongolia. And it's going to be a small contract for 25,000. And it's going to be tied to our partnership day that we're doing in September. So I think this is a modality that our teams are increasingly exploring, because they recognize that, you know, sitting here in Manila, we don't have the answers, right? And it's oftentimes local groups who know exactly what the problems are and what the potential solutions are that are sort of best placed to do those. So I think we're going to see that modality being used a lot more. So I would, for all the organizations on here, that's probably the closest thing that we have to grant making at the moment. And so I would keep an eye on that page. And then for your third question for INGO, and also national offices, I have to check with our procurement department, but I would personally say hedge your bets, right? So register on the international side and then also register the local office on the national side, because then that means you're eligible for both contracts. So I'm happy to get a solid answer for you on that from our procurement people, but that would be my recommendation. Oh, Jiyoung, I lost you. Did you have any follow-on questions to that?
Oh, no, thank you.
Okay.
Thank you. And
Okay.
then we have, so I'll follow up with the suggestion and yeah, later. Thank you.
Yeah. If you can just send me a note, we'll circulate the PowerPoint, my email's on there, but yeah, send me a note with any suggestions, and then I will get you an answer on the INGO versus international versus local. Okay, perfect. Okay, Vicente, let's go over to you.
Hi, Marina. Good morning. Have a blessed day to each every one of us here. I do have some minor questions and
Sure.
maybe. By the way, I'm representing the Wolf Philippines Organization Incorporated. We are aiming. We are focusing on environmental. Actually, in sector, we are newly. We focus on growing and planting trees as to rehabilitate or some bringing back the biodiversity in some areas here in Philippines. And one of my questions is pertaining with the partnership with ADB. Do you accept or do you entertain that those NGOs like us, because we are newly organized and as of the moment we are just acquiring all our necessary permits and accreditations from government agencies. It was
Okay.
like SEC, Security Exchange Commission, and we are this Monday we just been acknowledged by our local government units, is our in city in Valenzuela. Do you accept as a partner the newly organized organization like us? And second question would be, because what benefits does the NGO gets from partnering with ADB projects?
Okay.
Those are my questions. Just all two questions that I have.
Yeah, no, thank you so much. And congratulations to your organization for getting up and started. I know the paperwork, I'm here in the Philippines too. Sometimes the paperwork can be a lot.
Yes, actually.
So I wish you very good luck on that.
It took us 5 months to gather all those
All the
necessary documents.
Yeah. No, so just to clarify too, as an organization, ADB is massive, right? So we're, like I said, we're doing 23 billion in lending every single year. There's a lot going on. And so our ability to have lots of partnerships with organizations is very limited. Right. So we have a couple of MOUs with civil society groups, like WWF and Plan International, like very, very sort of selective MOUs. So I would say partnership is not really what we can do with many civil society organizations. But what we can do is the contracting and consulting opportunities that we were just talking about.
Mhm.
And in terms of benefits that I personally have seen for organizations for winning these. So first off, it's financially, it makes a lot of sense for a lot of organizations, right? So this
Yes,
goes
right.
back to the point about how in your bidding documents, you can include cost of overhead, right? So it's just
Mm.
sort of, it's operating more like a firm, right? But with a
Mhm.
social purpose. It's sort of like social enterprise, right? So you can include all of your overhead costs and everything, and we will include that into the contract, right? And so we
Okay.
are paying you for
Mhm.
that. And I think the other thing that's really beneficial is just because of the name of the organization, if you are able to win a contract from ADB, what we've seen with some of our other CSOs is then that helps them get grants from other institutions that offer grants.
Mhm.
Or contracts from other institutions. So we've seen small organizations that have worked with us on different projects kind of leverage the name and say, look, I've been able to work with ADB. We had this contract. We did this community engagement. And then that gives oftentimes donors and grant funding
Mhm.
mechanisms. Like, for example, the EU, I know, has done some. We've seen some, I think USAID too. They've said, okay, we want to work with you as a partner on the ground. So I think it leverages other opportunities as well.
Mhm.
And so I do think these, I mean, again, it's kind of like a job, right? Like it's like it's like having another line on your resume, that
Yeah,
allows you
right.
to leverage it for something else. So
Mhm.
does that answer your question?
Yeah. I get
Yeah.
I got it
Okay.
already. Thank you so
Yeah.
much, and then that's only my questions. I mean, all my concerns. Because thank you
Thank you.
so much, and have a
Thank
lovely
you.
day to all of us here.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Lovely day to you too.
Our pleasure.
All right. Do we have any more hands up? I'm so sorry. I'm actually not going to, I kind of want to look at the questions in the chat, but there are so many. Um, seeing some, oh, I see Diabetes Fiji. Over to you.
So this is just a follow-up questions based on the capacity building. That's I think you missed out to respond to that. Does ADB have programs in terms of capacity building directly for CSOs and NGOs as well?
Yeah, so we do not. I think that if you want to send me a note recommending that, then that is something that I think our team could consider. We don't provide, I think we could consider potentially something related to when you say capacity building, I've seen some other comments talking about, for example, preparing good bidding documents or how like capacity building in terms of like writing workshops, or is that kind of what you're talking about, or are you talking about funding
Yes,
for internal capacity building for CSOs?
yes, this is for writing proposals in terms of funding, and also how we can be eligible to the requirements and
Okay.
based on the ADB in order for us to be successfully in
Be able
applicant.
to successfully bid
Yeah,
on
yeah.
things. Yeah, okay. So so for that one, in terms of like writing workshops and how to properly structure proposals and how to structure, like the finances of bids, I think that is something that our group could potentially look into. So I would really appreciate if you could write me a note and just suggest that, then maybe that's something that we can take into consideration and try to develop. And happily be able to do that. What we don't do is providing funding for capacity building, if that makes sense. So we wouldn't provide a CSO with, say, $50,000 to improve their own internal processes, right? So that I feel like that's a key difference. But yeah, but on sort of the higher level, and we also, the other thing we can do is, if a CSO wins a contract or is going to work with us on a contract and they need some support in improving their own, for example, internal financial processes so that they can better meet the requirements of ADB, that's something else that we can do. but that would be on a sort of project by project basis. So, but please do send me a note on the kind of general capacity building in terms of teaching CSOs how to bid on these things, because that might be something we can take into consideration.
Renata.
Any other questions? Oh, I see. I'm looking and I'm seeing these questions. Okay, so so what we'll do is we will send around this presentation to all of our attendees today. Please do use it as a reference. It does have our contact information there. So if you do want to reach out and have any questions, please do contact us. And then also, you know, as we were talking with Diabetes Fiji and Jiyoung, you know, we are very open to suggestions. If you do have things that would help you, please do let us know. We will try our best to put together a good program so that our civil society groups know how to work with us, and also just to engage with us more generally in terms of policy and country programming. So please, our doors are open. We are here as a resource for you. Thank you all so much for attending today as well. And actually, sorry, before you go, I think we do have a survey. Shar and Sam, can we flash the survey up again? I think it maybe went on people. If you haven't completed the survey, please do, because then that'll help us do these better in the future. This is sort of the first one that we've ever done like this. So, okay, here we go. Okay, so here is the poll. So go ahead and fill this out again. Please do, particularly in the like written section, any suggestions that you have, we would love to hear them. And we hope that we'll have the opportunity to work with you soon. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Renata, goodbye.
So let's go to the Q&A then as you're completing the evaluation. So any hands up in terms of questions? Everybody, if you're putting the questions in the chat, if you're comfortable, if you could please raise your hand, because there's a lot in the chat at the moment. And I've also been talking quite a bit. Okay. All right, Saeed, let's go to you.
Hello, everyone. Thank you very much for your presentation. It was very useful.
Good.
Thank you. Well, I just, we have already been working on some submissions for the ADB. We are already registered on your portal, so it's been quite useful. There were some questions which we have already raised in the chat box. I'm not sure whether you'll be looking into it. I just wanted to know whether do you publish any schedules for the civil society partnerships days that you mark in different countries? Is there any date for the upcoming Civil Society Day in Pakistan?
Okay, that's a great question. So our partnership days are actually still in pilot. We did one in Bhutan and we're doing one in Mongolia in September. I think Pakistan would be a great next location. I think that would be fantastic, but we just haven't gotten there yet. But I'm happy to take that back to the team and mention we can put Pakistan at sort of the top of the list for maybe one of our countries. That we could consider doing this in. The problem is we just have too many countries. Okay, and then we'll also take a look. What we might do is take the questions that you had. I know you said that you had submitted some in the chat. So what we'll do is we'll synthesize those and try to answer them. And texting, maybe what we can do is we can sort of email out our answers after this presentation so that we can provide you with that information. Mubarak, let's go over to you.
Thank you very much for a wonderful presentation. I'm Mubarak, representing a National Civil Society organization, that is Agahi, from Pakistan. Is it any preferred list of countries for ADB?
In terms of where we where we can hire consultants from? Yeah. So consultants or firms. Yeah. So for most of our projects, it needs to be an ADB member country. So if you remember that, do you remember the map that I showed within the presentation and showing kind of Asia and the Pacific? And then on the side was a list of non-regional countries. So the European countries, the United States and Canada. So in order to be able to be eligible for ADB opportunities, you need to come from a member country. I will say Pakistan is most certainly a member country. So your organization, I believe if your organization is based in Pakistan, then you would most certainly be eligible.
Thank you.
Thank you. Let's go to Mustaqima.
Hi, thank you for giving me the opportunity and congratulate your presentation was really very helpful and informative. And this is first time for me in these sorts of webinar. So actually, if I'm not sure I'm repeating the question, but I am a little bit interested to know, do you have any preference area? Area means any theme that you want to focus in next 1 or 2 years? Because I know ADB also work on education and in many other themes. So do you have any preferable theme for next 2 years?
Yeah. So I think, our goal as an institution, sort of the primary theme that we are focusing on is climate. Our president has made the commitment that we are going to be the climate bank of Asia and the Pacific. So and half our portfolio now is being sort of tagged as climate lending. So climate is the big theme that we care about at the moment. But that doesn't mean that everything is climate, right? So we do have dedicated teams across a number of sectors. So that's transport, energy, health, education, social protection, water projects, urban services projects. So, we do still have all of these sectors, also governance. And then in terms of other themes, for example, we do have a strong focus on gender. So we have an entire gender team dedicated to improving the lives of women across Asia and the Pacific. So I would say climate is the big one, but we are still operating in all of these other areas as well.
Thank you.
Most welcome. Thank you. Yusra, how about we go to you?
Thank you so much for this session. Just a question about, so for countries like Myanmar, like Afghanistan, where technically there is no government to communicate with, there is no ADB presence on ground, how would you advise CSOs and NGOs to engage with ADB?
Yeah, that's a really tricky question. And I actually don't know that I am personally comfortable answering it because I don't know the full answer. That's our fragility conflict colleagues. As you know, in both countries, it's been so difficult. And I believe that we're reopening our offices in both countries and looking to start engaging in projects again there. But it's just, I think I'm going to have to put that into the FAQ and get back to you on that. I do know in Afghanistan, we've primarily been working through UN agencies. Yes, but if it's okay, I will come back to you with a better answer on that. Sorry.
No worries. Thank you.
Let's go to Deo and Alpe.
Hi, Marina. Thank you so much. That was a great presentation. My question is, given that the projects given by the Asian Development Bank to CSOs, are there any case studies or reports available that highlight the impact of CSOs' involvement in ADB projects?
Yeah. So the primary one is going to be, if you take a look at our annual reports, you can find that on our website. And we've done them every single year. We have an indicator that specifically tracks CSO engagement across the institution. And that indicator was revised in 2020. So you'd be able to see kind of be able to compare over time back to 2020. But that indicator shows the types of engagement and the number of projects that delivered civil society engagement across the institution. It also has a lot of sort of anecdotes and stories and case studies about civil society engagement. So I would highly recommend that project or that knowledge product to be able to get a sense of the overall picture.
All right. Thank you, Marina.
Thank you. Let's go to Abdul.
Hi, Marina. This is Abdul. I'm from Sri Lanka. I'm from a startup called Impact Voices, which is a social media intermediary. So this practice is quite new for us. So I would like to know. My first question is, as a first-time entrant, we also like to bid for projects. What are the areas that you think we must prioritize now as a first entrant? We are yet to register as a consulting firm.
Yeah, I mean, I think a good strategy is always to apply as many things as possible. And so one of the nice things about your CMS profile is that you can sort of submit expressions of interest because your profile's saved, right? And I would take a look as long as you meet those minimum requirements for the postings. I would say just do it, because the trick is getting your foot in the door, because oftentimes one consulting opportunity leads to another. I would say smaller programs, there's probably a higher chance that there will be less organizations applying to those. So, if it's a smaller amount and not one of these big tenders, then that's probably a better chance as well. Yeah, so I would just have as many irons in the fire as possible. And if you're based in Sri Lanka, I'm guessing you'll be looking for sort of Sri Lanka, you'd be applying as a national firm. So, go through those tender pages and filter for national positions within Sri Lanka. And that should pull up everything for you.
Great, thanks so much.
Thanks, Abdul. Let's go to Gafar.
Hello, Marina. Can you hear me?
Hi, yes.
Okay. First of all, thank you very much for the nice presentation. As you mentioned in the beginning that ADB provides loans to the government, to the countries. My question is that are there any examples where ADB provides loans to the organizations for various purposes? Because I'm asking this question because my organization is implementing a multi-million-dollar microfinance program for small farmers and small enterprises.
Okay.
And we do get costly credit lines from commercial banks. And so I was thinking that, for example, if we get a low interest rate loans from ADB, then the benefit can be transferred to the small farmers and the enterprises. Thank you.
Thank you. That's a great question, and it's a really nice one. So there's kind of two ways that we oftentimes do what we call them financial intermediary loans. So oftentimes that goes through the sovereign, where we lend money to the government, and then the government selects different banks to do oftentimes micro lending. So the money goes to the government gives it to the bank on lends and for micro loans. So and that would require getting to know the government that's going to do one of these programs. But the other option is going through what we call our non-sovereign operations team. And so this is the team. It's a much smaller portion of our portfolio than sovereign lending. But this is the team that normally lends to private sector clients. So I think in this case, a civil society group would be treated as a private sector client. That's something that I think one day in the future, we need to address kind of social enterprises and better lending rates for them. We just aren't there yet. But if you want to send me if you can send me an email, I would be happy to connect you to our non-sovereign team and see sort of whether they can put you in touch with the right person to potentially see if you can structure something that would work for your organization.
Yeah, sure. I would be happy to send the email. Where can I get the email from you?
Yeah, so it's on the presentation, but maybe I'll just let me put it in the chat right here so you all have it. Okay. All right, so it's just in the chat there.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, so let's go to Said Hassan. Oh, you're on mute.
Hi, Ms. Rose, can you hear me? Thank you.
Yes, we can.
Thank you so much for a wonderful presentation. For the first time, actually, we found out the process is quite smooth and simple if you try it. I wanted to ask about if you had some focal person in Pakistan's office on inclusion, specifically on including the person with disabilities in the development or humanitarian mainstream, and especially Handicap International in Pakistan leads a couple of forums, including women in DRR and aging and disability task force. So we were thinking if there is such a person, we could you could match us up with them, or we could approach them and maybe see how this goes and find out collaboration or cooperation opportunities.
Yeah, thank you so much for the question, Hassan. So I think the best point of contact for you would be the CSO anchor. So in Pakistan, his name is Khurram, and you can find his contact information on the website like we were looking at. So we do have a focus on disability. We have a team here at headquarters focused on inclusion and disability. And typically within our resident missions, we have points of contact who focus on these things as well. For Pakistan specifically, I don't know who that exact person is, but if you contact Khurram, he should be able to direct you to them.
Great, thank you.
Thank you so much. Let's go to Said Safi.
Hi, this is Asif. I'm sitting next to Said Safi. My question is, we recently submitted a bid, but we are not able to track it. It's not being shown on our portal. So if you allow me, I can share my screen and I can quickly show you.
Sure, let's do it.
I can share my screen if you allow me.
Yeah, sure. I don't know if that's possible. oftentimes the it doesn't really show. Do you know how long it's been?
Just like this one. So here we have our profile, but I'm not able to see the opportunity that we have applied for.
Huh, that's odd.
One of the colleague from ADB was saying that we can see it under the profile, but
okay,
I'm not able to see that.
Okay, why don't you, can you send me, I just shared my email. Can you send me an email just indicating this, and then I'll put you in touch with someone who can help you troubleshoot?
Oh,
The
that's
other thing-
fantastic.
Yeah. So we can try to help you troubleshoot that.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, Krishna, how about over to you?
Thanks, Marina, for the wonderful presentation. I have a question around the regional programming. Does ADB encourage regional programming for the CSOs? For example, I represent Oxfam here, and Oxfam has work across many countries in Asia. So if we want to do a program which is based in Bangladesh as well as based in Cambodia, is that possible?
Well, it would really, it would really depend on, because we aren't doing grants, it wouldn't be up to the organization to structure things, right? Because we're doing consulting opportunities, it would have to come from the government or internally at ADB requesting a regional program that the CSO would then apply for. So from a regional perspective, we have several regional programs within the institution. So for, I'm sorry, you said Bangladesh and?
That was just an example.
Okay. Okay.
If we like, because we are working in many countries across Asia.
I see. Okay.
So that was just an example that I stated.
Yeah, so we do we have a number of regional sort of cooperation and integration programs. So we have the CARIC program, which covers Central Asian countries. We have the SASEC program, which covers South Asia. We do a lot with ASEAN. So there's a number of programs that that are regional in nature. And so though any sort of opportunities that would be available for those would be posted just with every other opportunity. I'm going to, I want to look to see if, because you might even be able to filter for sort of regional, right? But it would be sort of under, okay, so for example, even here, I'm seeing regional program. Yeah, and if you look at that work with us page, the projects and tenders, within the filter results, in addition to filtering by country, you can also filter for regional. So you would be able to see what regional opportunities are there. And then an organization like Oxfam might have a competitive advantage in bidding on programs like that, because you do have the in-country presence in so many countries, and you are kind of doing this as an organization yourself. So I would think that those would be very attractive sort of opportunities.
Thanks, Marina.
Yep. Thanks so much, Krishna. Let's go to Lalaruk.
Hi, Marina.
Hi.
Hi. Thank you for the insight. It was very insightful. Just a quick question regarding the CSO competition. You mentioned that the CSOs shall compete with the corporate firms. But for the prices, they can claim the salaries and the overhead. So just a little bit, I need an explanation on that the bid will be on the total project budget, while the salaries and overheads will be claimed separately, right?
Yeah, so it would be the cost. I mean, so like when you're doing bidding on projects, I mean, you have to incorporate all of the costs that your organization is expected to incur while doing that project, right? So the private sector would break that down in terms of, here's the cost for the project itself, here's the cost for our administrator, and here's our profit margin, right? So where you can compete, where civil society groups can compete on cost is oftentimes the cost of that a CSO would be less than, you know, say McKinsey, right? McKinsey's horrible. They cost so much. They're so expensive. So civil society groups can often do sort of like put out just as good outputs, but they don't charge as much. So there's a lot more value for money. But, you know, within your bidding documents, oftentimes when we receive bids for different things, you know, like you want to include the total breakdown of cost, right? So it's not just 25,000 flat, right? Oh, we'll do this for that. Like when you are actually breaking down the costs of your bid, you can include for example, your rent on your office, because that's a cost that you incur just for existing, and that ADB would then be able to pay for if you do win the contract, right? So I would just include everything. But I think even if you do include everything, you're still going to be competitive sort of with a private sector company. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I'll sum it up that I'll compete on the total value while giving you a breakup of my overheads. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, got it. Thank you.
Okay, any more questions? Just a reminder, we will take the questions in the chat. We are going to take them and sort of synthesize them into FAQs. So we'll be sending around this entire presentation. At the end of the presentation, we do have screenshots of kind of what I was showing you about CMS and also identifying the projects and tenders. So that hopefully will be easily accessible. So we'll send this around to you along with those, and then maybe follow on with those FAQs. Okay, and then just a reminder, if you do still have your evaluation up on your screen, please do fill that out. We are trying to improve for the future. So this would help us so much if you were able to tell us what you thought, what we could improve, what we can do better. We are here for you. And with that, I'm going to say thank you so much to everybody. I hope you all have a great day. We hope to hear from you soon. We hope you bid on opportunities. We hope you win those opportunities. So good luck to you all, and let us know if you need anything. All right.
Thank you, Marina.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you.